There is no doubt that the future of designing websites which look professional, scalable, and consistent in Divi 5 is going to be using variables and advanced units. Now, with the advanced units, it helps us create units that are fluid. For example, your fonts and also even your spacing. But the trouble is, there's a bit of a process to achieve this. Let me show you what I mean. So over here, I've set up the latest Divi 5, and this is a text module. So ideally, we want to make this fluid. So the process would be, you'd go to a website like this one right here, where you can collect your clamp units. So here we have our 16 pixels as minimal, and then here we also have our maximum value, and this is what our clamp calculates. So I'm just going to highlight this, copy it, and then I'm going to come back over here to my site. And over here now, there's a new addition to the latest version of Divi, and that is our clamp values. So if I click here on text, you're going to notice that when I scroll down here for our text size, if we click on pixel here, we now have clamp, and this is what we need. So in clamp here, I'm going to go in and enter my value that I've just copied from the other side, and you can see it has changed. This is now the new value, and this was the old one. Now, if I also need to add my values for my headings, I also have to do the same thing. I would come over here and let me just show you what I mean. So here I'm in heading 1, as you can see it's set over here. So I would need to go back over here and work out, okay, what's my heading 1 going to be, the minimum size? And let's say it's going to be 32, and then the maximum size here is going to be, let's say 40, okay, on 1000 pixels here. Okay, great. So with that now, I would come over here and hit calculate, and now it has calculated my values. I'd copy that, and then come back over here to my site, and then I need to now go to my heading 1. So for my heading 1, I'm going to come all the way down here and choose heading text and be on heading 1. I'm going to scroll down and then go to my heading size. So I'm going to click here and then go to, where is it? I need to look for clamp, and here it is. All right, so I'm going to go in now and paste my value, and you're going to notice now that this text here has gone bigger, and this is our default one, and you can see the changes are happening over here. So if I save this and do a quick preview, you're going to notice that, in fact, let me do it in such a way that is easier for us to see. I'm going to inspect this, and now I'm going to drag this so you can see what is happening here. Do you see that the size is getting smaller? Take a look at the smaller, at the paragraph on the bottom. The heading is getting bigger and bigger and bigger as the viewport is getting bigger. Okay, but over here, nothing's really happening. Now, this is a problem, and I'll tell you where the problem is. Imagine going into each and every text item, and you're adding all your clamps, copying it from one website, pasting it over here, copying from one website, pasting it in here. That can be cumbersome. And even worse, can you imagine now sharing this website with your team and trying to explain to them how you managed to get those values? It's going to be a nightmare for your design agency, or even for yourself if you're working as a freelancer. So the solution to this is to add variables to our clamp units, and that will solve the problem, right? Yes. But here's the thing, you need a bit of CSS knowledge for you to be able to pull this off. But what if I tell you that I've made things very, 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 very easy for you? And this does not only apply to the text, but it applies to pretty much everything. Let me show you what I mean. So over here now, I have my texts. We're going to keep this as it is. So we are going to install SiteKrafter Pro. This is the solution to building scalable and designing websites with efficiency, consistency, flexibility, and maintenance. All right, so we are now going to install the latest version of SiteKrafter Pro. This is a Divi framework. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to come over here to add new theme, and this is going to come in as a child theme. I'm going to click upload, choose file, and here it is. I'm going to double click on that. And now I can click on install. So installing it is very, very easy. Now all I have to do is to hit activate, and now it is activated. Okay, so now that is activated, let's head over back to this page that we're working on, making sure that it's saved. What I'm going to do here is refresh so that I have all my values in here. So of course that has gone, but it doesn't really matter because we don't need this anymore. Right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to click on this, and then we're going to come over here to advanced CSS ID and classes. And all I'm going to do here is to enter SK. Now, do you see, just by entering that, the text has changed. Now, this is now fluid, and we don't even need to go in and add any more values in our clamp, in our text, or any of that. We don't need to do that anymore because now it's already set. So let's go ahead now and save. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add another section here so you can see how this is going to work. Okay, so let's test and see if this is truly flexible and fluid. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to open this in a preview. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, I'm going to right click, inspect, and now let's test this. Now keep an eye on the text. It should start shrinking in size as this screen is getting smaller and smaller, and you can see there it's getting smaller. The heading 1 especially, it's very visible. Do you see that? So this will be, say, a mobile device. So already I've gone in just by entering SK. Now my text is what? Is fluid. It's getting bigger and bigger with the screen size. Ideally, this is how you want to design your websites using Divi. So as you can see, just by doing that one change, you don't have to enter any text sizes throughout your design process using Divi 5 ever. But it doesn't end there. We also have other things that we need to make sure that are consistent as we're designing our websites. Let me show you. So what we're going to do now is to show you our style guide here. Now, before I entered this code, this child theme, this is what our style guide looked like. Now, if I refresh this, notice what happens. I now have all these things. I have my primary button here, the accent, the outline. I have my primary color, secondary color, and so on. Now, this is my style guide. Now, if I continue going down here, you can see we even have things like your shadows. Okay, now all this is in the framework. You don't have to go in and guess how much shadow sizes you need to add into each and every item. It is defined once. Okay, next, if we take a look here, our button font weights. Okay, these are all defined. And of course, this is our fluid typography. Now, let me show you a typical workflow and how exciting it is to design your websites using Divi 5 framework. Okay, so I'm going to delete that, and we are going to have a single column here like that. Okay, so in here, we're going to add some text like that. Now let's also add a button, but the way I'm going to add my button here is by adding a button module like that. And you can see these two items are close. This is very intentional because we want to make sure that the sizes we are going to add here have unique spacing. Okay, you can see as I'm adding all my paragraphs, it looks like everything is bunched together. Now, the unit I'm going to show you here is very powerful. Let's start with the button here. I'm going to select the button, and then I'm going to make sure that it's centered by coming over here to alignment and then hitting center. Okay, the next step now is to come over here to advanced ID and classes, and we are now going to say margin top, which is empty-L. So that's margin top large, just like that. Okay, next we're going to come over here to this text here. We're going to select that, and this time, it's too wide, and ideally we don't want it, that wide. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over here, CSS ID and classes, and then we're going to say sk-contents. Okay, so you can see now something has happened. It has shrunk. So the next thing now is to head over here to design. In fact, while I'm even here, I can even center this by doing that. So now my text is centered. All I have to do is to center the whole thing by coming over here to text. And then I'm going to come all the way down here to spacing. It's sizing. And then I'm just going to center it. Okay. So I know now there's too much text here for our main heading area. So I'm going to delete that. Next, we are going to come over here to advanced. So you can see here we've entered a few things. We've entered SK content, center, and now I want to enter my spacing so that things are not very close together. So I'm going to say empty-large. Okay, now you can see I've got my spacing here. This one here is large, this one here is large. And now I can go in and add my main heading. So with the main heading now, it gets even more exciting because with this, I can actually come over here to advanced CSS ID and classes, and I'm going to say heading dash L. Do you see that? Just by entering heading dash L, it's now added my heading. Now I can do center like that, and now my text is centered. Okay, so at this stage, you're probably thinking, well, what if I want to make it bold? I really want to make it bold and maybe even make it slightly bigger. Well, take a look at this. I can now say font, and then I can choose my weight. So let's try 700. Look at that, font 700. Now, where am I getting all this? We now have a reference that we can take a look at here. And by coming over here, I can actually see my spacing, for example. I can say, okay, gap S is for gap small and so on. I can even come over here to my margins. And so far we've been using MT for margin top. We can also use MB for margin bottom and so on. And these are all the sizes. All of these sizes are defined for you and they're all mathematically chosen. And also these sizes are fluid. So as the screen is getting smaller, these sizes are also shrinking as well, making sure that everything looks perfect, pixel perfect, as you're designing your website. Okay, so let's continue on here and finish off our design. So back over here now, we can say, okay, you know what? This is a bit too much text. So let's get rid of some of this text like that. Okay, so that's going to be our main heading, right? So let's get rid of that. We don't really need that. Okay, so do you see now how my hero area has just been created here? I can now go into this section and also do a few things. So for example, maybe I want to make this section large. So I'm going to say SEC for sec dash large. Do you see that? It has just gone bigger. So now I've added more padding to the top, more padding to the bottom. So I also want to do something different here, and that is to add a background color. So I'm going to say BG dash gray dash 100. And now I've added a light gray to my background. Now, do you see how just by entering my classes, the design process is really, really exciting. So this is how you want to be designing your websites with Divi. And not only that, this process of designing it this way is ensuring that our spacing, our sizes, our font, everything is fluid. And once you go to the reference, it is very easy for you to see what you need to adjust in case you've forgotten. So this is a very, very powerful way of designing your website. Now, I'm not done yet because there's a lot that we can do here. So let's do something a bit exciting. I'm going to come over here and add a single column. And in here, we're going to add a blurb. Now, we are going to do something really exciting with this blurb because I want to show you some other exciting features. So with the blurb selected, we want to add a background color. So let's start off by coming over here, CSS ID and classes, and we're going to say BG for background dash gray, because I want to add a gray color here. And I'm going to say 200. Okay, so at least it's visible because I want to show you a few other things here. So with this, I want to add a radius. In fact, before I add a radius, I want to add, padding. So we're going to say pad dash large. Now, did you see how I've just added padding over here? Now, I know it's not easy to see right now. You're going to see this in a moment. Okay, so I've just added a padding dash large, and I also want to add some rounded corners. So I'm going to say radius, RAD dash medium. Now, do you see I've just had some rounded corners added over here? Okay, and maybe it's not visible, but it's just been added. Okay, so with that now, I want to add a grid system onto this design. So I want to come over here to my row settings. I'm going to go to my column here, advanced, ID and classes, and I'm going to say grid. Okay, and then I want this to be automatic. So I'm going to say grid dash auto like that. So every time I duplicate this, notice now everything is now side by side because I've added grid auto. Now this is really, really cool. If I do that, now I have 3. Okay. If I continue on, now I have 4. Okay. But you know what? Let's keep this at 3. Okay, so at any point now, I can start adding, my heading to this design here if I want to. But as you can see, I've not gone into the design tab here to make any changes. And this is very, very important in this new style of designing websites that I'm showing you today. Okay, so with that now, we might be thinking, well, what if I want to add a hover effect? Can you imagine going in here and then going into design, and then you want to come over here to this icon here, you go to hover, and then in hover here, you want to perhaps add a drop shadow on hover and so on. I mean, this is just cumbersome. Now, take a look at this. I'm going to select that, come over here to advanced, CSS ID and classes. In fact, I need to get out of this mode here because I'm still in hover mode. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to say hover dash scale. Okay, let's save this and do a quick preview. Okay, if I scroll down now, in fact, let's get rid of this because we don't need that. If I scroll down now, notice what happens when I hover. There's a scale. Look at that. You see, it's not on these ones, but it's on this one. There's a scale. Now, let's say on the second one here, I want to add, in fact, you know what? This color is a bit too much. So let's bring it down to gray 100, maybe even gray 50. How about that? There we go. So now we have a very light gray, but I want that when I hover, okay, I want to add a little darker tint to this. So I want to say hover dash dark. Okay, let's hit save. We're going to come over here and refresh, and let's see if our hover effect has worked. Look at that. When I hover over it, it has a darker tint to it. Now, you may be thinking, well, maybe this is only applying to this item. Now, this hover state can be applied to anything. It can be a button, it can be a whole section, it can be pretty much whatever you want to add this hover to. So we have so many hover states. We even have another one called hover glow. In fact, for hover glow, let's add it onto this one here. So let's go to advanced, CSS ID and classes, and we're going to say hover dash glow. How about that? We're going to hit save and then we're going to refresh this. Okay, let's take a look at this now. Boom, look at that. A nice, beautiful glow. How cool is that? Okay, so we haven't gone in to do any crazy customizations as we're designing. And you know what? The beauty of this is all your websites you're going to be designing are going to be following the same standard. So if you have a design agency, this now becomes your standard because remember, if you purchase SiteKrafter Pro, you can install this on as many websites as you want, at least for now, because this is on a lifetime license, okay? So once lifetime is gone, of course, things are going to change because this will be now installed perhaps maybe on, say, 3 websites, and then the middle package is going to be perhaps 20 websites, and then the higher package is going to be 100 websites. But at the moment, if you purchase this, this can work on unlimited websites. This is huge. So your design agency is going to have a streamlined, scalable way of working. Even if you get new team members coming in, all you have to do is to teach them this system and pretty much you are good to go. Now, it doesn't end here because there's also other features that are super powerful in this. Let me show you. So let's say you want to now use keyboard navigation. Now, keyboard navigation is very important because it is required for accessibility. Now, if I hit tab a few times, you're going to notice that something is happening here on my screen. You can see on the top there. Now we are on the logo. Now we're on the home link. And, if you continue doing that, now we're on the click here button. Okay, this is keyboard navigation. With this, I have not even touched the mouse. I'm just using keyboard. So there is cases where maybe someone has disability situation where they need to use a keyboard. This is compatible and is compliant with keyboard navigation. How cool is that? Out of the box. As soon as you install the SiteKrafter Pro framework as a child theme, this feature is built in. So right now, if I wanted to scroll down, I'm using my down arrow here. I'm not even using my keyboard. Nope. And if I want to navigate back, let's say to my home link up there, I can just hit Shift Tab. Okay. Do you see that? Now I'm on my home link. Now I'm on my logo. So out of the box, this is what you get. Now, I want to show you something else also that is super exciting. Let's head over back to our dashboard here, and we're going to come over here to pages. Okay, so let's say I've been working hard on this page and I want a duplicate of this page. Notice that when I hover over here, we have duplicate. Okay, now by default, WordPress does not have this duplicate feature. This is in SiteKrafter Pro. Why has this been added? Well, this is for efficiency. If you want to duplicate a page or duplicate a post, it is right there. You don't have to stress adding more plugins to be able to achieve this. So as you can see, this is a very, very, very powerful system. Okay, so over here, if we want to continue on, you can see we have our gray, we have our colors here, but we also have colors. In fact, you know what? Let me show you on our style guide here. We have our colors here as our button, our primary colors, our secondary color, our accent light. We can actually add these colors to our design. Let me show you. This is super exciting. Okay, so what I want to do is enable this. Okay, and I'm going to select this and go to CSS ID and classes. And as you can see, we are back over here, and instead of having my background gray, let me get rid of that. Right. Okay. So at this point, I've forgotten the code, but before I go in and show you this, I want to show you something very, very important. I want to show you what is driving all of this. So I'm going to go to open recently, and there we go. Okay, so as you can see here, we have so much going on. This is our accent color. This is our grays. This is our text colors. So all these are variables. Now, do you see how extensive this is? This has so much going on. We even have transitions here. We have heading sizes. In fact, I demoed this a moment ago, the radius. We demoed that a moment ago. So as you can see here, this is really, 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 really amazing. Okay, we have our background colors here. You can see if you BG Pri will give you your background color for your primary color, your accent color, and so on. So this is a very, very extensive framework, which once you install and master how the framework works here, you are good to go. You are pretty much good to go. So here is the framework reference. So your background colors here, you can see for your primary background color, it's BG Pri, accent color, your background color, and so on. Okay, very, very powerful. So you may be thinking, well, there is a bit of a learning curve when using this framework, and it's a different approach to designing websites. Well, that's true, but with this system, you're guaranteed to have a workflow that is super, super amazing. So all you have to do is to master all these CSS shortcuts. And once you master this, pretty much you are good to go when it comes to designing your websites. Now, I could have gone through so much other stuff here. We have flexbox, grid, shadows, border radius, buttons. In fact, you can even add buttons here if you wanted to. So let's say I want to add a button here. Let me just create 3 column here. So let's say in here, add text. Now to add my button here, I'm just going to say download. Okay, download. And you're going to be amazed how easy this is. So we're going to say download now, and then we're going to come over here, CSS ID and classes, and then we're going to say button, and we have our button right there, just like that. Now, isn't that cool? You are turning text into a button. That's really, really cool. Okay, let's continue on here because I have a few things to show you as well. So let's say you have, in fact, we're going to use call to action, okay, email opt-in. And of course, we're going to use this blurb here because we have it. Now, if you want to make this text in this blurb here fluid, all you have to do is to come to advanced, CSS ID and classes, and then just add K. And you see that this has gone bigger. Now, of course, you can customize this a bit further. You can go to design, heading text or title text, change this from H4 to H5. You can even go as low as H6, but I think H5 is cool. And that's it. You now have your blurb, and this is now pretty much responsive and fluid. We can do the same with each and every module that has text. So for example, we have our email opt-in here. All we have to do is to come over here to advanced, CSS ID and classes, and then just add SK, and look at that. Just like that, everything now has just come to life and it has fluid typography. So if we scale this down, all this text here is going to look great on all devices. Now I'm going to do an extensive getting started with SiteKrafter, and this is just going to pretty much go through everything that you need to know on how to get started with this after you've purchased this. Now let me show you something that's very important. Let's head over now to our pricing. So this is going for 167 for the lifetime right now. So this will give you unlimited updates, unlimited websites, unlimited support. This is also going to come with a web design course teaching you how to design these websites using this framework. That is how extensive this is. So this course is going to be part of the 167. I'm just waiting for a few features of Divi 5 to come through, things like rows and also Flexbox and grid. Once that comes through, this is going to be a complete course, which you'll also have some masterclasses for those of you that really want to drill deep and understand how this works. We're going to have quite a lot going on once we have Divi 5 out of the alpha stage into beta. It's going to be huge. So this is your time to purchase SiteKrafter because it's going to be 167 for the lifetime. Once it gets out of lifetime, which will be very, very, very soon, it's going to be 277 for the lifetime. And to be honest with you, I might not even have the lifetime license going forward. I'll just leave it at my yearly, which is going to be 97. Perhaps maybe it might be even a bit more depending on the features that I'll be adding onto this. So this is 40% off, and this offer is very, very limited. So you need to grab your license. I know there's going to be a few bugs here and there, just like any other software, but don't get frustrated because I am going to be working tirelessly on this to make sure that it is updated and has pretty much everything that you need to design websites or in a very awesome way. Now, here's the thing. If you want to use this on the latest version of Divi. Please do not use the previous versions because they don't have the feature of variables, so it won't work. So this needs to be on the latest version of Divi. I'll leave a link to this in the video description below. There's a lot I could have talked about regarding this framework, but you know what? I thought I'll just go through this update with you, and this is really, really exciting. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments box below. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one. Take care.